Good morning, friends. Good morning and welcome. We are so glad you're here for this very special Sunday school. Scott Ball found Mercedes. He was listening to NPR one morning and heard her interviewed, and he decided my church would love this. So he contacted Mercedes in every way possible: Facebook message, Instagram message, voicemail, text. And Mercedes was like, wow, I think this guy really wants to talk to me. So Scott passed her information on to us, and we have her with us today. I had the joy of picking her up at the airport and taking her to dinner last night, and I can tell you her warm heart and amazing art is beautiful and transformational. I want to tell you a little bit about her. She has exhibited and performed at the Bronx Museum, the Smithsonian, the Kennedy Center, and the National Gallery of Art. And those are just a few of the places where she has been. So Mercedes, we welcome you. Let me give one logistical note. We're going to stay up here, and Mercedes is going to talk a little bit about her art for a little bit, and then we're going to go outside under the porte-cochere, where she will actually melt the bullet casings into 3 bells that will belong to Westminster. Okay, so in a little bit, we'll go outside. Feel free to get those donut holes. I overbought a little bit, and water and coffee. Okay. All right, Mercedes, it's all yours. We're glad you're here.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. I'm overjoyed to be here. I feel like it was really amazing for Scott to reach out to me. And I think that there's something beautiful about being able to do this talk and also this bullet melting ceremony later kind of in his honor, because even though I only talked to him for a few times, he was really wonderful. And I feel like, you know, in many ways, I do the work that I do really because of community and really to connect with like-minded people. And I really only want to work and collaborate with other people who truly uphold the values behind my practice. And I could tell that in his spirit, he really truly upheld the same values that I did, and was passionate about the idea that the world has the possibility to change. So before we begin, can everyone please stand up? And please put things in your hands down. So as an artist, I work in every single medium possible. I work in sculpture, I work in sound, I sing, I perform, I create installations. And a huge part of my practice is that I truly believe that we all need positive collective energy in order to make this type of work possible. And so creating that for me is also really important as an artist. So what I want us all to do is, if everyone can please close their eyes. Okay, I want everyone to close their eyes and slowly begin to feel their body. And now I want everyone to very, very slowly open your diaphragm and deeply breathe in. And slowly exhale. And one more time. Slowly breathe in. And slowly exhale. And one more time, slowly breathe in. And lastly, slowly exhale. And in this state, I want everyone to have their eyes closed. And I want us all to be imagining the world, not that we are in, but the world that we want to be in. I want everyone to imagine a world in which all bullet casings have the possibility to become bells. Okay, and please open your eyes. Wonderful. So what we're doing, we're setting a little bit of intention today in both the talk and also the ceremony we're going to be doing later. Thank you. You can sit down. It is totally up to you. It's your decision. I would never dream to set parameters in my audience. So that being said, I'm Mercedes. I am an Argentinian and American artist. I was born here. I grew up partially with Argentina. And I really began doing the work that I do today because of the Orlando Pulse Club shooting. The Orlando Pulse Club shooting happened a few years ago, and it was a huge wake-up call for me in my practice. I'm queer, I'm gay. The Orlando Pulse Club shooting. The Orlando Pulse Club shooting happened in Orlando. 49 people lost their lives. And I myself, I'm gay. I'm also Latina. I had been in that club many times before, and I really felt like I so easily could have been there. Many of my friends were there. And I felt like, how can it be possible that in this country where people are trying to find joy, if it's on a dance club, if it's in a place of faith, if it's in a church, if it's in a school where you're trying to get educated, how can this be a place that feels dangerous? How can this be a place that should not be the safest place in the world? And so in kind of reaction to that, I decided to take a Sig Sauer MCX rifle, which was the exact model of rifle that was used by the shooter, and melt it down and transform it into 49 Liberty Bell. So the image behind me is me melting down my very first assault weapon. And I really felt like, as an artist, I really wanted to take the materiality of violence and force it into its opposite, which to me is really art and music, you know? And I think that as an artist, I love the visual arts, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much potential in really sound and music. And so I didn't just want to melt down this weapon and turn it into something that was beautiful. I wanted to melt it down and transform it into something that had the ability to ring. Because bells are very interesting. Bells in many cultures, in many spaces, really are about mourning those who have passed and those who we have lost. But at the same time, bells have so much healing potential, right? They can really ring throughout a community and both have the capability to heal and to mourn at the same time. So I melted it down and turned it into these 49 Liberty Bells, which have been in Orlando and also travel around the world to different locations to pay homage to individuals who have felt the ripple effects of gun violence. And the next work of art that I'm going to show you all is actually a public art piece, which is in Memphis, Tennessee, and it's about a block away from Aretha Franklin birthplace. And something that is very important to me is a lot of times when I'm making this work, I really want to be working with a community who have felt the impacts of gun violence. And that can be something that's very direct, and that can be something that's very indirect, you know? Sometimes even living today in the world in which we live, maybe you have felt the ripple effects of gun violence indirectly. And so this is a piece that I made in collaboration with a family who lost their father to gun violence. And so the family collectively came together, we collectively melted the bullets together, made these bells, and then they decided to write a poem to honor their father, and then I engraved that poem on the bells, which are suspended in a park today. And so another big part of my practice as an artist is that I'm very interested in spirals. I think that spirals really have the potential, again, to kind of ripple out into a community similar to a bell. And they also really have the potential to create change and to create movement, both within a community and in our society. And I think that something that was really beautiful is that the family that I worked with decided that instead of honoring their father's death, which was very violent, they would begin to honor the day that this installation was installed. So it's, you know, it's about in many ways, my work is about trying to take something which is almost impossible to mourn, and there are very few rituals of how to mourn gun violence in our society, and try to transform this material of violence into something that feels more positive, more livable, and more breathable. So similarly, this is another sculpture that I've made, and it's a book, which is currently a public art piece in DC, and it's dedicated to the life of Charnice Milton, who was a DC-based journalist who lost her life to gun violence. So I recreated her signature on the book, and in collaboration with her family, installed it in a place to honor her life. And these are an example of also a big part of my practice as an artist is I work very closely with Moms Demand Action. And so we cast plaques made out of melted weapons, and then those plaques can go wherever their families who lost their loved one to gun violence, wherever they want to go. So sometimes it's with trees, sometimes it's inside of their home, and it can really depend. So as an artist, I make sometimes smaller sculptures, but at the same time, I love to work in sounds. I love to work in installation because I think sometimes there's a way in which, you know, bodies moving and kinetic motion and sound really add an extra layer to artwork. So this is an installation that I currently installed at the University of Maryland's museum, and it's entirely made out of melted guns. So everything that you're seeing, with the exception of the images, are made from forged weapons. And so in the installation, it's a kinetic installation that's created with motors. And I'm really thinking about my own relationship to my partner, who has been deeply affected by gun violence, and thinking about the ways in which our relationship can still kind of create a safe space despite the world around us. So in my work, very often I want to take something which is very violent, like some of these semi-automatic weapons, and transform it into something beautiful. But also at the same time, I feel like as an artist, my role is to reflect on what's happening in the world around us, you know? And so sometimes the pieces that I make are not quite as beautiful. Sometimes they, like this installation here, they're sharper and they have a little bit more ugliness to them, and they feel a little bit more vulnerable, and they have more precariousness to them. So often I completely want to transform the weapons I'm working with, and other times I really want to be able to transform them to reflect what it means to be alive today, you know, in a world in which it is very difficult to escape the ripple effects of gun violence. So this is an installation that is an ongoing project that I've been doing with schools throughout the US. And it really came about because I did an artist talk at a university, and all the students came up to me afterwards and they said, this is something that we have a lot of thoughts about, and we want to vocalize how we feel. And of course, as an artist, that's what I want to hear. If people want space to be given their own voice, that's so important. So I have a project that's called I Feel Safe When, and I go around to different schools, and students do poetry workshops to articulate how they feel in school. When do they feel safe? Do they feel safe? And it's really also a reaction to the active shooter drills that a lot of students have to do on a regular basis. And so depending on each school, the students are also taught some of my own methods so that they can begin to transform these materials of violence into objects of beauty, and then those are left at the school behind. And very often I collaborate with the choirs, And I really try to create this environment in which, you know, students can vocalize when they feel safe. So here's just a short video.
In society, in our surroundings, there are just so many unsafe circumstances that we're put in just by being ourselves. And I just feel my safest when I'm meditating.
I will feel safe when there is gun reform in this country. I will feel safe when I no longer have to go to school and look over my shoulder. I will feel safe when I no longer have to fear which school is next to be the target, when campuses aren't in danger and my peers are protected. That's when I will feel safe.
I feel safe when there is love around me.
When under the covers, with nothing under my bed, and no ghost in my closets, I feel safe in my head. When my doors are locked, with the chains in their place, all the lights in their sockets, I feel safe in my space. It can't always be perfect, I can't always feel safe. Still, there shouldn't be moments when there's a gun in my face.
I feel safe at home. All of my worries are gone, and some are still looking.
I feel safe when I know my surroundings, and I feel safe when I'm with my family. Me being safe is to be at ease.
I will feel safe when I don't have to feel the need to always be on alert in public places. I will feel safe when I can go a day without seeing on the news or social media that someone innocent was killed in a violent way. I will feel safe when I no longer have to wonder if having a family is a good idea because I am scared to bring a child into a cruel and dangerous world.
Would feel more safe if all of us were prohibited for personalities.
Safety is something that a lot of us take for granted because we assume that it's always supposed to be there, when over these past few years, it's been proven that safety is not guaranteed. So I feel grateful that I live in a home where I am safe as not only a Black female, but also a Black LGBT female.
So as you can tell, something that was really important to me for this project is that, you know, people who have been affected are really just given a voice and able to talk about it and feel like they're in, you know, a safe space and using the language of poetry or art or song to express themselves. And that's really what this project is about, is just giving people like a space and a platform and something that makes them feel comfortable so they're able to vocalize and how they feel. Because unfortunately, we live in a society where that's not necessarily the case. And I think that it's very important, especially for folks who are younger, to really be able to express, this is how I feel, and to embody that through action, you know. I think that sometimes maybe even talking isn't enough, and sometimes there's something beautiful about performing actions as well. So the next piece that I'm going to show you guys is actually an opera that I'm producing in DC. And my background is actually originally in sound. I was a musician long before I was an artist. And I'm very lucky to be collaborating with an organization who was like, yes, please create a gun destruction opera. So this is just a short clip of Act 1 that was performed last month in DC. And what I'm doing in the opera is I'm taking the sounds of my process of cutting guns and melting guns and recasting them. I'm taking that soundscape and I'm beginning to compose music in reaction to that sound. So I'm working with opera singers and dancers and percussionists and musicians. So here's a short clip of a very experimental opera. So it goes on, but a big joy in my life is being able to bring together everything that I do. So I really, as an artist, I'm not just interdisciplinary, but I really think that I work in all disciplines possible. And now in opera will be part of it. So that was Act 1. And the first part of my process of transforming weapons is that I have to cut them into small pieces before I put them into my furnace. And so Act 1 was us kind of taking that process and composing music in reaction to it. And then Act 2, which will be in a couple of weeks, will really be a melting ceremony. And so we'll be actually melting those pieces and then recasting them into bells and instruments. And again, working with opera singers to create some sound. Yeah, okay. So I think that's kind of the end of the artist talk. So I think we're gonna go downstairs and begin the bullet melting ceremony. Does anyone have any questions before we go downstairs? Unfortunately, I can't tell you, but it is through it's very approved and legal. I work with the DC government, but I'm not supposed to tell anyone. So yeah. Okay, wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, everyone. So let's head downstairs. Thank you. Okay.